Ah, yay,
So,
Martin.
hi there, Ted. So great to see
Oh,
you. Uh,
yes, it's been a little while since I spoke in your neck of the woods.
yeah, it's been a couple of years since you were over here in Stockholm. It was a delight to take your seminar here in Stockholm, and I hope to get you back over here as well.
Oh,
So,
thank you. I'd love to go back. It was just a gorgeous city, and I didn't realize the water was so clean.
yeah,
Somebody told me they actually go fishing for salmon
yeah,
in the waters off of Stockholm. I mean, right off the pier.
yeah.
Which,
Here in Old Town, just the water is just it surrounds the Old Town. There's people standing fishing. Yeah, it's
yeah,
amazing.
I was very impressed.
Yeah.
So, of all the things in Stockholm, fishing was what impressed me the most. But
Yeah.
yeah, I met a lot of really great people, and it was just a very nice class and seminar. We did KST,
Yes, and
and I
you're
can
the
talk a little bit
developer
about that.
of
Hmm?
Koren Specific Technique, KST, that we're going to dive into how that came into be. So for the listeners, whether you're a chiropractor, a practitioner of any kind, or just lay people that's interested to know more how to improve your health through a very, very specific way of asking the body, what is it that is not working? Where's the disturbance? In chiropractic, we call it subluxation. But you have a beautiful way of detecting it, asking the body what's priority, and finding
Yes.
and allowing the adjustment to set on that innate intelligence doing its work. So
Yeah,
let's dive
we
into
took.
your wisdom and all your experience and knowledge this
Thank
coming
you.
hour.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, we talk about the wisdom of the body, but why don't we use it?
Yeah,
It is accessible. We can use it. What's called I call it binary biofeedback. It's just a way of getting the body's reaction to questions and stress. And the questions can be asked in many ways. We could do it physically, verbally, or even mentally. I was fascinated by this. Had somebody mentioned this to me years ago, I would have said they were, a little fairy dust sort of settled into their brains. It just was too far out. But it worked so well, I couldn't deny it. So I was in a bad accident. It wasn't a car accident. It was a home accident, and I got a concussion and a whiplash, and almost lost my fingers
mm.
from the damage. It was pretty bad. And what happened was I had on top of I couldn't use my hands. They were in constant pain. My wrists, my hands, my elbows, my shoulders. I couldn't make a fist. I couldn't open my hands fully, and I gave up my license to practice. I was practicing as a chiropractor. I actually gave up my license because I couldn't function.
Yeah.
I also had sciatica, which had bothered me off and on over the years, but this time it really got worse. And some days I couldn't walk more than 10 feet. No matter where I was, in the city, on a beach, park, I'd have to sit on the floor, on the ground,
Mm.
and then wait a minute or two, and then the pain would subside and I'd be able to walk again. So this went on for 10 long years. And within that time, I saw all the chiropractors I could, and dozens, because being well known in the profession for my writings and lecturing at the time, I I'd always ask, who's the best person here? Whenever I was traveling in different cities to give talks to state associations. And I'd get worked on. I also went to MDs, osteopaths, physical therapists, body workers of all kinds, craniosacral, all good stuff, acupuncture, all kinds of massage and all. Great stuff, wonderful people. I was still a mess. And one day, after 10 years, I said, I can't go on like this. I didn't want to resort to drugs, surgery, steroid injections, painkillers. I knew I would never do that, but it was getting so bad. I didn't know what to do. So I started experimenting on myself. And I accidentally combined two different procedures that independently could not help me. And I'd been to 40 to 50 different chiropractors and MDs and osteopaths and all. So they tried everything. And I was still miserable. I combined two different procedures, which separately did not help, but the synergy was very powerful.
Yeah.
And I used an instrument, an adjusting instrument. You could use any instrument, Now I realize you can even use your fingers, but the mechanical instrument works a little better. And I located exactly what everybody else missed. And after 10 years of suffering, I was out of pain in 5 days.
Yeah.
My sciatica, however, I had had for 20 years before my accident. So by that time, I'd had it 30 years. And that took about 6 weeks to disappear completely. It would have happened in less time, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was my first patient. So I was experimenting on myself. My wife, Beth, had migraines for 12 years since pregnant with our first child. And I found nobody could help her either. I found one little area to correct, adjust, tap, whatever. And she never had a migraine since. So I thought, my God, is this something significant, or is this just a fluke, an accident?
Yeah.
Serendipity. So I decided to, when I was lecturing a lot, I was touring all around the country and in Canada. So I decided to make an announcement. Right before I dismiss all the doctors for lunch or whatever, I'd say, okay, I think I've discovered something. I don't have a name for it. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it seems to be very powerful. And anyone who has a health problem that you can't get rid of, that you've been not well for a long time, see me during the break. So I thought 1 or 2 doctors would stop by. The line went out the door. And oh boy, everybody was a mess. And I found what everybody else missed, apparently. This is what doctors later on said it. So anyway, I did that for about 16 months, seeing over 1,000 of the worst cases. I mean, doctors like me that nobody else can help, who tried everything. And the results were so astounding. Well, first of all, they started bringing their wives and office assistants and their kids. So that was sort of nice. But the results were so powerful. Then I decided to start teaching after many requests. And thank God, I've taught about 5,000 doctors, mostly, Koren Specific Technique, KST. And the feedback has been just exceptional. And we realize that when you're communicating with the body and looking for the hidden stresses that everybody else misses, you can apply it to get rid of learning disorders like dyslexia, get rid of phobias, bad habits, emotional trauma that never left the body, or the body mind that is still affecting someone in a day-to-day life, even allergies. So we really accidentally discovered a way of locating areas that other doctors just miss. And I'm really gratified to have been able to teach this. So that's, in a nutshell, the very beginning of KST, Koren Specific Technique. And we teach it at seminars. We have a home study. People can go online at korenwellness.com and learn the work. We don't limit it to chiropractors or healthcare professionals. We've had a lot of lay people come and learn the seminar to take care of their wives and their children and themselves. There's no law against working on yourself.
Yeah.
Not yet. At least not yet. So I've been teaching it, and it's been a great experience, and I'm still learning. Every patient teaches me something. Yeah. I think our patients are our best teachers.
That's for sure.
So, yeah. So when you start getting feedback from people. And we learn, actually, my work was based on failure. Everyone that we couldn't get them better, we kept digging deeper, kept asking why, and we realized that you can actually correct, without surgery, you can correct discs. And I've seen this, I've had so many people scheduled for back surgery who never needed the surgery.
Yeah.
And within a very short time also. Funny thing, with patients, I had one guy come in, he came in to do some work at the house, and I see he's walking funny, and I asked him, he said he's got back surgery scheduled for next week. He's got this disc problem. MRIs show lots of bad discs. So I grab him and I say, come into my office. And I saw him a few times. He canceled the back surgery. He went back to his part-time job as an emergency medical technician, picking up heavy people and carrying stuff. He was a chef also. So it's a great little story. But the funny thing was, the best correction, the most sensitive area, was not his spine, but his femur head, the top of his thigh bone. Yeah. And that was, when that was corrected, his pains went away. And I thought, oh my God, if he had had back surgery on his spine, he would have been another failed back surgery patient. And as we know, over half of all back surgeries fail. The person is in as much or worse pain within about 2 years. So, and sometimes they need a second operation and then a third. So KST, thankfully, has saved people from a lot of that, a lot of surgery. Yeah. But my most fun is working on little children. Yeah. When you have a kid with dyslexia or reading or math or others reading, other problems, and kids are great because by definition they've not been as sick as long as their parents. So they're young and they have lots of vitality. Yeah. This is, and we can learn a lot from homeopathy, for example. They're always talking about the vitality of a person. And children have wonderful vitality. That's why that's the ideal time. What is it, 5, 6, 7, that you get childhood diseases, so-called diseases, which are really crises of detoxification, of purification. And that's the perfect time to have it, because that's when the kids have the most vitality. That's when they can generate an intense fever to burn off poisons and a rash to expel toxicity. And we know now, I mean, this has been known since ancient times. It was just folk wisdom that these conditions heal a person, that parents report growth spurts, intellectual spurts after measles, after mumps, after chickenpox, what have you. And we now know that when you suppress an acute, illness like fever or rash, when you suppress it with drugs or vaccines, you drive it deeper into the body. And unfortunately, we are seeing study after study showing that people that, actually, the good news is people that have childhood diseases and go through many of them have less cancer and heart disease as adults. And this is incredibly important to understand. So much of KST, when you ask the body, one of the things you can ask the body for, apart from spinal and back and neck and head and other things, other areas that need adjusting are, is this person toxic? Yeah. And the toxicity comes from many areas. One is dental, from mercury fillings or from root canals or wisdom teeth that were never properly cleaned. And that's terribly common, and it can cause tremendous problems. And now there's material linking bad teeth, dental infections to Alzheimer's, MS, Parkinson's, all kinds of dementias and arthritis, and God knows what else. So the list is very long. So the work, KST, is really a means of exploration. And we, and actually being a chiropractor is a protective to me, because when I criticize vaccinations or drugs, I don't have the threat of somebody pulling my license. Yeah. And this is, I think chiropractors and natural healers are really one of the main sources of honest, truthful information today. The medical profession has sadly been compromised. I say that with a full awareness of medical education. My 2 younger brothers are MDs. And one of them, and they would tell me, how much of their education was financed by the pharmaceutical companies. And so much of the schools are, and the journals are. And so, you get a medical journal and you see full page ads for drug after drug in full color. That is really supporting the journals. Yeah. So you have a terrible financial conflict of interest. And this is serious. And America, they passed a very stupid law saying that pharmaceutical companies could advertise prescription drugs on TV and the media. And well, now the media is pretty much beholden to pharmaceuticals because they make some, that's they get their largesse from. Only 2 countries in the world permit this, the US and New Zealand. I have no idea why New Zealand is so corrupt, but the US, it's terrible. And it's one of the dumbest things ever done. And people are easily manipulated, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But anyway, to get back to KST, find that the doctors are finding all kinds of great things, locating areas of stress. And it could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be a sort of a mind-body thing, because you can't separate physical and emotional. Physical, emotional toxicity, and other areas. Sometimes we'll find things we're really not aware of what it means, but there's a blockage. And all healers, all natural healers, look for blockages. And what's preventing you from being 100% you, 100% healthy?
Yeah.
And we have blockages all over our bodies and minds that need to be looked at and corrected. And it can be done easier than people are aware of.
Yeah.
So, acupuncture, they use needles to get energy flowing. And osteopaths, I know in Europe, the osteopaths are better than in America because they're not so medical. They use manipulation to get blood flowing, arterial blood flowing. Chiropractors use the adjustment to get the nerve impulse flowing through the body. And detox is a way of getting rid of blockages. There are many ways of doing it. I think the future of healing truly is getting rid of blockages and detoxification of the person. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. And you can actually locate blockages very quickly and easily on a patient. And one of the things we discovered was these blockages, chiropractors call them subluxations. These blockages are posture specific, meaning that when you're standing, you may not have the same damage as when you're sitting. And I worked on people who, when they get into the position that hurts them, well, pain is a good indicator. Not always, but often it is. When they get into the position of pain, it reveals, that's where the damage can be revealed. So you work on people and their posture. It doesn't have to be pain. A lot of my students work on professional and amateur athletes who it improves your golf swing, your tennis swing, baseball, football, at soccer. You call it football there, right?
Yeah.
You don't call it soccer. Okay, football.
Oh, yeah, soccer is called football here. Yeah.
And what's American football called?
American football.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Very logical. So, I remember I was giving a talk in Italy, and this one doctor there, he just showed photos of these world-class soccer players that he was seeing. He said, we have these incredible coincidences. After they get KST care, they have the best games ever. Wow. He said, these are great coincidences, and we seem to be creating a lot of coincidences using this work. Yeah. But you can also do it no matter what. I mean, when kids are reading, you can find blockages, and that's how dyslexia can be corrected in that way. When I remember, I didn't know about this in the beginning of doing the work, but posture can be physical or emotional or physiological. There's all kinds of postures. So I was in Chicago. I was on stage giving a talk on about the importance of posture. And then one guy said, can this help dyslexia, reading? Yeah. And I hadn't thought about it. I said, well, it should be. I mean, I guess the theory is right. And if the theory is correct, it should help dyslexia. And I asked to the audience, anybody here have dyslexia? Well, that guy raised his hand, the one who asked the question. And he came up on stage. He was about in his 50s. And he said he's not able to read. He said going to school was a torture. His friends would be out playing after school. They do their homework in a half hour, and for 3 hours, he's still doing his homework. and chiropractic school was practically an impossibility. The letters are always jumbled. He has to sit quietly, and the letters have to be interpreted. So he said it's been really bad. He's had it all his life. And so I said, well, let me check you without reading, right? I cleared out a few things that he had out of position, cranials, I remember, stuff like that. And that took a minute or two. And then I said, okay, now let's see. So I asked somebody to bring me something to read, and some doctor brought a magazine and handed it to him. And he started reading it.
Oh.
His whole body locked up, every part of his body. I mean, it was incredible. So I corrected the blockages that occurred using KST, of course, using the instrument while he was reading.
Yeah.
And that was standing and sitting. For some reason, reading standing and reading sitting are very significant.
Yeah.
Anyway, and reading quietly and out loud.
Yeah.
So I corrected it. It took about 2 or 3 minutes. Stuff doesn't have to take long. And I said, that's it. So he looked at me and said, that's it. I said, well, I don't have anything else, nothing else to do. Your reading doesn't elicit any subluxations, any blockages.
Yeah.
So he gave me a funny look, like, I can't believe I spent money on this seminar look. And he sat down, and I continue my talk, and I hear crying. And it's the guy who I had just worked on, and I thought, oh God, what did I do this time? And I said, are you okay? He said, I'm reading. He said, for the first time in my life, I can read. The letters are all normal.
Yeah.
And that's what started me to realize the potential of this work for mental issues, processing issues. Dyslexia being only one of many learning disorders.
Yeah.
You know, there's learning disorders with writing. It's called dyscalculia.
Yeah.
Dyslexia, dyscalculia is writing, as math. That's math. Dysgraphia, is writing, and probably many others. So that has apparently great potential. Just that alone, it's really good. But when you put people in different postures, a lot of times when it's ball players, it's physical posture. Although when an athlete gets really great, real, top of the line, most of their problems are more emotional than physical.
Yeah.
Their father told them they'd never be a winner. That's there. And that might be holding them back for a split second in being perfect, ideal in their performance, or they hate the coach, or there's a problem with their roommate or one of their teammates. And it's amazing the little things that you can find that can make such a big difference for really, I'm talking about athletes, anybody really.
Yeah.
We all have these little things. We're born here to perfect ourselves.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So I think KST helps that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful work. And in the story that it's told now, it was like, a smile extra when you were done after 3-4 minutes, and the guy looking at you like, is there nothing more? Because most people, they have a perception that there must be so much to do, and the more serious your problem, the longer you've had your problem, the more intervention you need. But it's the beauty of KST and other ways, it's a way to ask the nervous system, the body, what is the blockage, what is needed, and give more and no less. What's the priority? And when is there's just time for integration? And you ask the body for that as well with KST, which is beautiful.
All right.
I mean, the part of the KST way of working is, to ask, is there anything more? Is it done? That's so much built into the way that you work with the body. It's always in continuous communication with the system, asking, does it need more support or not?
Yeah, and sometimes when you get to a point and the body says stop, And there's no more priorities. Now,
Yeah.
it could be that they need a few minutes to integrate what
Yeah.
you've done, because you shouldn't over adjust or over correct or do too much. And that's true of every healing art.
Yeah.
Doctors sort of get carried away and say, well, I did little, it helped him a lot, let me do even more. And that could be counterproductive. So you wait, and then you let them rest a little bit. Could be just a few seconds or a few minutes, and you might find that the body is now ready for more care, or that's the end of that's the end. We've had enough right now. And you have to respect the body. And I like to tell people, sometimes the best thing a doctor can do is nothing. Excuse me. Yeah. So I've been very fortunate. I mean, my 10 years of pain and suffering turned into something that turned into be a blessing. So it's blessing in disguise. So I have a new prayer.
All right.
Yes, it's a dear Lord, dear Lord, please send me a blessing that's not in disguise for a change. I've had enough. But the people in Sweden were wonderful. You attracted some really great doctors. I'd love to come back.
Yeah, I'd love to have you over as well.
A lot of times, not a lot, but a good number of times, I've given talks the day before to the general public. And it was funny. One town in New Jersey, Lakewood, New Jersey, they asked me to give a talk on vaccination and nutrition, children's health. I said, sure. And when I got there, oh my God, the place was overflooded. It was standing room only. And I said, what happened? You guys did great advertising. Says, not really. What happened was when the MDs heard you were coming, they put ads in the local papers telling everyone to stay away. So, well, as a result, everybody wanted to know what am I going to talk about? So the place got packed. I said, well, the next time I speak, please let the MDs know first. But yeah, it was funny. But the general public is hungry for information, and they want to know what works. All I care about is what works.
Exactly. And that's what the thing, I mean, there's some people might think you're as controversial, you know, about vaccinations and cancer and other topics that you've written about. At the end of the day, it all comes down to the results. What works.
That's all it is.
And your work do work. So
that's the only reason. That's the only thing that matters. Theory is nice. But theory, you can die for a theory that is totally wrong. Look at the millions of people that died for communism. The Nazis. Theories, crazy theories, but people were willing to just follow it blindly. And right now we are following a lot of medical theories blindly. And as a result, I don't know what the statistics are in Sweden, but in America, over half of all children today have a chronic illness. We have, and this is what medicine is, after a century or 50 years of the most advanced, so-called most advanced medicine in the world, we have such sick children. We have to start looking at things a little bit more open-minded and not ask, gee, this is our theory, but say what works. What gives us healthier children? One of the people I like to talk about at my seminars for nutrition is Weston Price. Are you familiar with him? Okay, so Weston Price was a dentist in Ohio. He was the head of the American Dental Society research.
In the 30s, 40s,
In the 30s, in the 20s and 30s. And he wanted to know what was the ideal diet of humanity. And they were hearing stories. Those days, the world was not fully explored as like it is today. And they were hearing stories of isolated people who were in perfect health. Being a dentist, he was interested that they had zero cavities and straight teeth and normal formed features of the face. And he began to, him and his wife, Indiana Jones style, traveled to dozens of different cultures, almost 300 villages all over the world. They went to isolated parts of Europe where they still ate traditionally.
Yeah.
Islands off the coast of Scotland, high mountain valleys in Switzerland, for example, that really were cut off from the rest of from the foods of commerce, as you like to call it, the white flour and the vegetable oils and seed oils and sugar and refined foods. They were cut off. They just ate traditionally. He went through to America, of course. He was there to Indian cultures in the South and in the Northwest, and Eskimos and Aborigines that's as yet were untouched. South America, Melanesia, Polynesia, Africa. It's pretty fascinating. And his book is Nutrition and Physical Degeneration.
Yeah.
It's a great book. It's in print still. It's in its 7th printing. But he said, what is the best diet for humanity? Well, let's see where people are the healthiest and ask, what do you eat? Yeah. Rather than try to decide in advance what makes people healthy. Because how many diets are there today?
Oof.
Oof is right. God knows, right? Dozens.
Yeah.
So many different ones.
And people like to trademark them as well and make them their own.
Oh, yeah. And he said, well, let's see what people have traditionally eaten. And it turns out that the traditional diets are all very similar all over the world. Even though somebody in the northern tundra will have a totally different access to foods than someone living on an island in the Pacific, or in the Aboriginal desert area versus a lush tropical rainforest. They all seem to gravitate toward the same kinds of foods, even though the specific food was different. And this was, and he discovered the ideal diet for humanity. And you'll probably discover that your traditional Swedish diet is perfect for people living in Sweden. Yeah. And this traditional Scottish diet in Scotland, and on and on. If we look back into our past, we'll find that the traditional diets are what kept humanity healthy and thriving, because the number one reason for good nutrition is to have healthy babies. And if babies are born with needing wisdom teeth removed, that's a nutritional deficiency that the mother probably had and the baby had, because there has to be enough room in your mouth for your teeth. Suddenly, wisdom teeth have to be removed. I'm sure your grandparents didn't have to deal with that, or the great-grandparents, but because the soil is deficient and the foods are deficient, and of course, deformations of all kinds, physical and mental. And Weston Price, in his book, deals with that. And it should be required reading for every college, every chiropractic school, for sure, every medical school, and the general public, and many lay people get into it. So I got into that simply because it's just based on results.
Yeah.
We want to say, what is the ideal diet? Well, let's see where people are ideal.
Yeah.
And when people said this KST work, I'll say, well, and they'll say, how do you know? Have you done double-blind studies? And I'll say, no, every patient is a clinical case study.
Yeah.
And now we probably have millions of them.
Yeah.
And thank God KST is growing. I was supposed to give seminars, like 3 years ago. I was scheduled for 2 in Hamburg, 1 in London, and 2 in Brazil. Right, within about a month or so, 6 weeks, all canceled.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And now I'm just starting to lecture again. It's so sad. But thankfully, things are more or less back to normal. Sweden is to be congratulated for being less crazy than any other country, apparently.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few others, but in the Western Hemisphere, more than we stand out as doing the different way.
I think it was best.
Yeah, which was actually the way it was agreed that it should have been done. The way we did it was actually how apparently in the EU, how it was supposed to be done, but everybody else changed strategy. We just stayed to what was commonly agreed.
Well, I wish I lived in Sweden then.
Yeah.
I think I would have had less stress than getting thrown out of stores for not wearing a mask and yelled at. People are still wearing them here sometimes. It drives me nuts to see. I see a person alone in their car with the windows up wearing a mask. Thinking, oh God, what's wrong with this picture? But people are manipulated into fear. Fear really is scary. So what we're telling people with KST is we'll get rid of those blockages so you can tune into who you are better.
Yeah. Innately, you make choices that are wiser for, you follow what the body tells you to avoid and what it's most beneficial for you.
Yes. And doctors who start using the work, they get more sensitive.
Yeah.
They pick up information. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Almost every doctor I've spoken to, pretty much everyone who starts using KST, notices that their sensitivity increases in many interesting ways. Right. Some just unique to them. Yeah. But they're like, how you suppose people often don't trust their hunches. Yeah. It's sort of like that. It's sort of like a hunch, because a hunch is really an autonomic nervous system reaction in a way. If I can get very mechanistic now. And what you begin to start trusting yourself. Yeah. And your gut feeling, as they say. They we have this expression. I don't know if you have in Sweden, your gut feeling, your gut. Yes, yeah. And then they discovered in the 70s or so that we have a nervous system in our intestines. Yeah. Our guts have about as much nerve cells as our spinal cord. Yeah. So we have at least 2 brains.
Yeah, and then we have the third up here, hopefully, as well.
And the heart, absolutely. The heart has intense number of neurons. It's more neurological than muscular. Yeah. And so you have the heart and the spinal cord and the brain and the gut. And who knows what else? What other nervous systems we have?
Well, that's it. But then there's the way we access and gain information through our system. I mean, we know so much more about that, how electromagnetic fields, the connective tissue, the fascia, there's so much more knowledge now coming out how we interact with our internal environment and external, and how communication goes.
The fascia you mentioned is fascinating. Yeah. It's sort of like it travels. Information on the fascia travels faster than the nerves. Yeah. And I learned about this from watching baseball. Yeah. Because you have a pitcher throwing a fastball at 95 miles an hour, and the batter is how many feet away? 60 feet away or whatever, at 90 feet, 60. And the nerve system can't recognize the pitch. Yeah. And yet people still hit baseballs. Yeah. They're using another part of their internal communication system, and it's probably the fascia. Yeah. The fascia is semicrystalline. Yeah. And information travels at the speed, close to the speed of light, probably. And that's why with KST, we had developed a meningeal technique. The meninges are the fascia that wrap around the brain and spinal cord, and ultimately spread all over the nerves and through the muscles and organs. It's really your other body. Yeah. And we find that fascial restrictions, meningeal restrictions, can cause profound effects all over the person. Yeah. And that's another reason why putting people in a certain posture can be very powerful. Yeah. When you work on them in that posture. So that's my baseball story.
No, that's a great one. People, getting back to the autonomic nervous system and asking the body, in KST, you call it the occipital drop, the OD. It's the way that you found out, and we now know that there's other ways that we can ask the body and get access to the autonomic nervous system response that the body has to different challenges, thoughts, emotions, and feelings, so specifically also to know how to address what's the interference, what's the blockage that arises when you think about something, or like reading or thinking about your spouse or whatever. So dive a little bit more deeper into that, you know, the asking, finding, and releasing, and letting the innate intelligence do the work.
Yeah, well, we're really connected to each other. And when the doctor asks the patient's body's question using what I call a binary biofeedback device, it could be the occipital drop that we use in KST, which came to me from Dr. Ward, who developed a system called spinal column stressology. It could be muscle testing, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it with the back.
It became a ghost arm, and now we can see it.
And then you have this was patented, the Ohura. He actually gets money. I probably owe him 50 cents now for doing this, but he actually patented it. There's the short leg reflex. You lay a person down in the leg, and I didn't know they were all the same thing.
Exactly.
All the body responding to stress. We really probably have dozens or hundreds of these little lie detector tests within us.
Pseudomotor responses, subtle responses from the nervous system expressed in the skin tone, the temperature, muscle tone.
Heart rate variability is another one. So you can really hook someone up and just see hundreds, if not thousands, of physiological changes when a person is exposed to stress. Initially, when we did KST, we only did it physically, and we push or pull or swipe a body part. And that would, if it increased stress, the body would respond. And it would respond, you know, you can have a weak muscle or a short leg or the occipital drop, or the breathing would change, or any of hundreds really things. But the occipital drop, I found, was very easy to do and had certain advantages over muscle testing, because muscle testing, AK and applied kinesiology, the practitioners, they would often find muscle fatigue. You know, you do it on a person 10, 20, 30 times, and their muscles would get weak, and the doctor would get weak also from all the pushing. So that was with the OD, the occipital drop. You don't have that. You can do it 100 times a minute, and there's no weakness. But also, we could put people in different postures. And with the KST, with the one form of short leg reflex, you have to have them face down to ask their body by using the leg length. But with KST, you don't have that limitation. So you can put people in different postures. And we would physically push and pull body parts. In the 1960s, Richard Van Rump, who had a technique called DNFT, directional not force technique, used the leg difference as his yes-no device, or binary biofeedback. And he was doing it, and he's working on a patient, and he's thinking, I wonder if their atlas is out of place. And suddenly the leg moved. And he wasn't physically touching the atlas or the legs. They moved. And he started testing this, and he realized that the body was far more sensitive than anyone ever realized. You can not only challenge, put stress on a person physically, but you can even ask mentally, just verbally, say things out loud, or mentally. And like I said earlier, I thought this was sort of like craziness, but it works beautifully. We are far more connected, and we affect each other far more than we realize. So that's part of the beauty of the work, in which you're free to ask all kinds of questions, not just, and also in the order things need to be corrected. Because people are like, I like to use the example, people are like combination locks. You can know the combination, but unless you know the order that you have to spin the dial, it won't open. So we are like combination locks. It's not just a matter of knowing where the person has problems, it's what order the problems need to be corrected. And I always tell people, never treat for pain. go to the cause.
Yeah.
Because as you alluded to earlier, the body is nonlinear. It doesn't go from A to B to C to D to E, etc. You can jump around A to W, W to L, L to B, B to Q. The body has its own wisdom, and we need to respect that wisdom and work with it. Just like we have the occipital drop or muscle testing, binary biofeedback, so the homeopaths have what they call the provings, which is really asking the body, is this the right energetic fit for the person? And it's really a way, and when they do their provings, which is they give people doses of, and initially to discover a proper remedy, they'll give people a high dose of it and see their reactions. And then they know a low dose can cure those symptoms. And that's really asking the body.
Yeah.
They don't use biofeedback, but they're watching the body's reactions. And the world of healing is very exciting, but it has been stifled by the medical model, which is really sad. That the only thing that's wrong with you is that you need a drug, and that or you don't have, or you have too many body parts, and we have a cure for that too. But the drugs really are mostly symptomatic. They get rid of symptoms by suppressing symptoms, and when you suppress symptoms over time, it leads to deeper disease, chronic illness. And chronic illness never goes away. So when you suppress an acute illness with drugs or vaccines, you drive it deeper into the body. I had a patient, very interesting, a boy with brain tumors, and he came in and I corrected him, and his body broke out in a rash, pustules, little pimples full of pus, head to toe, all over. And his parents were worried. Kid freaked out. It's a teenager. They always freak out. Anyway, he freaked out. And they wanted to go to a dermatologist. I said, well, the dermatologist, who I consider among the most dangerous of all the medical professions, their job is to really using steroids and creams and antibiotics and then to suppress a skin eruption. Yeah. But a skin eruption is how the body detoxes. Yeah. Well, they went to the dermatologist who said it was a virus of some kind, which is like the default when they don't know what it is. But thankfully, they did not take any of the drugs. And about a month later, he went for an MRI and his tumors had shrunk 80%. And within a year, they were totally gone. And I believe that the correction, and it could have been homeopathic as well as KST, there are many ways of getting the body to work better and to cleanse itself. But I'm glad that happened to him. And people have to know that symptoms are nothing to be afraid of. It's what your body uses to restore homeostasis or balance. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's it's the core philosophy of chiropractic and other health. Now looked at alternative health, but it's a viewpoint that we can go to India, China, traditional ways at looking at health. It's not about something being wrong. It's how can we support the wisdom, innate wisdom within the body, yes, to do its work, instead of it's doing something wrong.
Yes, absolutely. What you want to do is let the body be itself. That's the goal. One of the goals of homeopathy and traditional healing all over the world. Yeah. So yeah, that's incredibly important. Sorry about the noise.
No worries. And obviously detecting whereas the blockages or miscommunication within the system of the body. I mean, there can be miscommunication between one area and another area. So when that blockage
a lot of it is communication. You can actually, and there's one interesting, we have a procedure. One of the doctors that I taught, he likes to use it a lot. He's popularizing it. Will you touch different body parts? Yeah. your head to your heart to your liver.
Yeah.
They do this in the technique called body talk also.
Yeah.
And you ask the body, is there a disconnection?
Yeah.
And then you correct whatever blockages there are on the body.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can use it in a lot of cool ways
Yeah.
to see if the person is truly connected and energies are flowing, healing is flowing properly. There's no too much or too little. You want to balance. So that's what KST is. And I think, thank you for those great questions.
Yeah, my pleasure. And yeah, it's been a great honor to talk with you and hear you. And I hope a lot of listeners and viewers will reach out and find out more. Both at, reading at your site, you have so much information leaflets and all your books.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, KorenWellness.com is sort of like the general site, and from there they can see the books and information and KST.
Yeah, and also to take the online course for those that are interested in that.
That's been fascinating. We've had lay people master the work using their online.
Yeah.
It includes about 16 hours of videos too. As well as the manual and all. But yeah, that's sort of fun when you see that.
Yeah.
Everyone learns at a different pace.
Yeah.
Some people just pick it up really quick. Others have to work at it.
Yeah.
But we're all like that. I mean, it took me 10 years to figure it out. I'm pretty slow in some ways.
Oh, we're glad that you did.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I will put the links below for people to click and get in contact and to see your books and your website and so forth. And I hope to bring you over to Stockholm again. And
that'd be great.
Seminar going here.
Yeah, maybe not in the winter.
No, summertime is better.
I think so. But I'm sure everybody's out then. Nobody wants to sit in the classroom.
It needs to be a good timing when there's good weather but not too good. So late tends to be like when after the summer, when people are like filled up and have had plenty of sun, but there's still good weather, but they can manage to be indoors as well. So
all right, good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll stay in September, I reckon, could be.
All the best to you. Keep up the great work yourself.
Thank you. So we'll stop.